Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name is Krishna. I'm an audience engagement editor and the Baltimore Banner's TikTok guy. I have the honor of introducing our next panel, Biotech and Beyond, Unleashing Maryland's Next Innovation Frontier. At the Banner, we've covered innovation in many different fields, all the way from an entrepreneur finding an opportunity to work with green waste in the Maryland cannabis industry through composting, to chatting with a CEO or self-described chief estrogen officer about how she launched a company that makes it easier for women to access safe feminine hygiene products, to explaining how researchers at Hopkins are looking to develop new cancer drugs, to covering how advocates are pushing for Maryland to shift to electric vehicles at a large scale. This panel brings together some of the most relevant names in tech, energy, and biotech in Maryland to discuss the future of innovation. Before I introduce this esteemed panel, a few notes. There will be a few minutes at the end for questions from the audience. If you are moved to share anything on social media, we ask that you use #ImpactMaryland. On our panel today, we have Carim Khouzami, President and CEO of BGE, Maryland's largest gas and electric utility. Christy Wyskiel, Senior Advisor to the President of Johns Hopkins University for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and Executive Director of Johns Hopkins Technology Ventures. Kelly Schulz, CEO of Maryland Tech Council, the largest technology and life sciences trade association in the state. And Jamie McDonald, Chief Executive Officer of UpSurge Baltimore, which is focused on building an inclusive tech economy in Baltimore. Unfortunately, Troy Lamel-Stovall is unable to join us today. This panel will be moderated by Andrea McDaniels, the Banner's managing editor. Please welcome them to the stage.
So great, looking forward to this conversation with you all. So California has Silicon Valley, Maryland has the biotech industry. We're gonna start with a speed round of questions. In just a few words, what do you guys think is the next big industry that's primed to become our next biotech industry in the state of Maryland? Carim?
I won't surprise people that I'll say the energy industry.
I would say healthcare and digital innovation within healthcare, including AI.
I'm kind of tied between the two, but I do think quantum, Maryland is going to own quantum in the future as far as the innovation and everything happening around the AI in healthcare and bio.
Okay.
And we think more about the entrepreneur than the sector. And we think unleashing the next generation of entrepreneurs in Baltimore is really the future for Baltimore and for Maryland.
Which could be a number of industries. Yes, definitely. So, so second speed round question. Knowing that there are probably many challenges to making this happen, what do you think is the biggest obstacle? Carim?
Ensuring that we get the right people with the right skills connected to the right opportunities.
I think we need a strategy as a state that is inclusive and thoughtful and takes account of what the stakeholders have, what our assets are, and what we need.
And cash. Capital investments is a big deal for our entrepreneurs and even those that are in the mid-stage of their growth, whether it be in bio or just regular tech.
Yeah, I agree. I think access to, equitable opportunities, pathways into tech, capital that's necessary for growth at the government, state and local level, and then at the private sector level are all really vitally important.
Okay. So we're going to delve a little deeper into this topic. Christy, this question is for you. We often hear talk about the brain drain or the challenges of keeping people who come to our great universities to study, come up with all these innovative ideas, but then they leave. How do we get people to stay in the state? And also, how do we create workforce, development opportunities for people who don't go to college, because not everybody is going to go to college?
So thank you for the question. I think there are lots of ways to think about this for our students at Johns Hopkins, whether they're undergraduates who have gotten to know and love Baltimore, whether they're in graduate programs who want to continue their research. There are so many, hundreds of these students that would love to stay and build businesses here. And so I think we have to continue to show them the love and show them that we want them here, that we will open doors for them for future customers, ways that they can hire talent, ways that they can hire diverse talent, and ways that they can be connected to those who can fund the businesses. And we have a number of pilot programs to try to do that and seed those students who want to stay and build here. But I think the future of Baltimore is really that the skyline should be filled with the names of companies coming out of our anchor institutions. And so the burden is on us to think about how we can equip these students not just to be employees of existing companies, but to equip them to start their own and grow their own businesses.
And Kareem, do you have thoughts on this as well?
I would agree with everything that Christy said. I would also add that even the existing companies, it's a little bit on us too. We've got to tell our stories so that our students see what opportunities exist for them. You know, when I think about BGE, I was talking to a young woman from UMBC, very impressed with her, and I said, would you ever think about working at BGE? And she said, well, I'm not an engineer. And that's when I explained to her, we are a lot more than engineers and line workers. Those are important, but we do a lot on the innovative side. We have drones, we're using AI, we're looking at leading the energy transformation for Maryland to get to this state's goals. These are things where we need innovative, creative thinkers and the best and brightest minds. So it's on us to tell our story so that people realize they don't have to go to Silicon Valley to do something innovative. There's a lot of innovation happening here in Maryland, and it's on us to tell that story, get them excited, provide them the opportunities, and keep the great talent we have in Maryland.
And this question is for Kelly and Kareem. What can government do to better foster innovation and create an easier regulatory process for this kind of innovation to take place?
Well, I'm telling you, it's easier to do it when you're not in the government right now. But I think the big conversation has to be, how do we get people outside of Maryland knowing that Maryland is as great as we all think it is, right? And so we spend a lot of time talking to each other about how great Maryland is, and we do that a lot. I've done it 3 times today already at different types of events. And that's good because we have to pump each other up. We have to talk about our ecosystem. But where the government can help us is to be able to speak outside of our borders, right? To be able to send the message outside of the state of Maryland to say, hey, listen, we want to retain these kids that are coming out of JHTV, and we want to keep them at BG&E, and we want to start at UpSurge because they're cool entrepreneurs. But we have to make Maryland the cool place first. And government can help with that messaging. And government can help by being intentional with wanting to be able to create those policies so that those younger people want to stay here and grow their business here, because Maryland has to be that destination point.
I would also add that the government can be a catalyst for innovation. They can be and they should be. One of the things that the government can do is partner with private companies to try to push innovation faster. They can also make it slower. One of the things I'm happy to see in Maryland is we're seeing positive steps where the state is really supporting innovation and helping us move at a faster speed. For example, the Maryland Public Service Commission with BGE suggested or authorized a number of different battery storage pilot programs. Battery storage is one of the key technologies that we're going to need to use as we lead this energy transformation over the next couple decades. This is a new technology, so we at BG have 2. There are a few others that are being done around the state. And the idea is that we use multiple different technologies with different ownership structures and different other things to evaluate what works best for our grid, what works best for our customers, what's the most cost effective. And that's important because the state has also now put out a goal over the next decade of having 3,000 megawatts of battery storage in the state. So the state has now put an aggressive goal to have a lot of battery storage, sending a clear signal to developers that battery storage is welcome and needed in the state of Maryland. So I think that's one of the things that the state can do to help incent people, get people from out of state to come want to invest in Maryland, build locations here in Maryland to invest in projects here in Maryland.
And then Jamie, what are you hearing from entrepreneurs about what makes it hard for them to do business?
I think it's very layered. It doesn't all, the government can do its part. And, I think, we said at the outset, one of the things certainly is, thinking about where the government can play a role in creating access to capital. And the government obviously has a megaphone to tell the good stories of the state and the entrepreneurs that are building there. But I think that there are many other layers of what really enables entrepreneurship, and you've got a group of people who represent different pieces of that puzzle. But I think a bit of it starts just with belief that it can happen here and more knowledge of what's already happening. I can't speak to the statewide stats, but Baltimore has a rapidly growing entrepreneurship ecosystem. We have 430 funded companies in Baltimore City. So these are companies that have raised some form of capital. We have one of the most diverse tech ecosystems in the country. There's a lot that's already happening, and I bet most people in this room can't tell you, there's a bunch of really great tech entrepreneurs in the room, but beyond them, I bet many people in this room couldn't talk about one company in Baltimore. And as somebody in journalism, I think one of the gaps in our ecosystem, I would almost turn it back to you, is that we also have a real lack of storytelling. Among the sort of the general publications around what's happening in business in Baltimore. So I think it's all of these components that all have to align together for us to tell the stories of what's already happening and build belief in what's possible.
I can tell you, we just hired a business reporter,
Yay.
and we're going to hire another one soon. So you will see more business coverage, at least from the Baltimore Banner. So that is great. Yes. So send us your story ideas. I always say, send us your story ideas. And kind of to build off of the, how to help entrepreneurs, Kareem and Jamie, what unique role can and should large businesses like BGE play in helping smaller businesses enter these industries?
So maybe I'll start, and let me start by saying large companies can innovate. So don't take my response to say that we can't. But lots of innovation comes from the smaller entrepreneurial type companies. These are the companies that come up with the new big thing, the new ideas. They're mobile, they're flexible, they're agile. These are the companies that we need when we're going through a massive transition like we are on the energy side, but really across all industries. So as a larger company, we need these smaller companies to be part of the ecosystem here in Maryland for us to be able to achieve our goals. So there's a number of things that we can and we should and we do for smaller companies. As Kelly mentioned, capital. Small companies need access to capital. So at BGE, for example, we have our Energizing Small Business Grant Program. And for small businesses, please apply. $20,000 grant programs, no repayment. It truly is a grant. And it's really aimed at trying to get those small businesses that extra amount of capital in the early days to really get them over the hump. We also have our Racial Equity Capital Fund, which is also aimed at small businesses, but also minority-owned small businesses, because what we have seen, the data shows that a lot of times minority-owned businesses have difficulty attracting capital. So we set up a fund so that they can have access to that capital. And then another program we have is our 2C2I, which is Climate Change Investment Initiative. And this is really aiming at small businesses that are dealing with climate change and taking an investment in them. So it provides them funding, but also provides them with access to and connection to a company like BGE that has a larger infrastructure. So if they have questions around finances or how to respond to an RFP or things that a small business owner may not know because they don't have the experience, they have a mentor or a reference or someone they can talk to who has been through it, who runs those type of those programs and can help them so they can achieve their ability to grow their business. So those are a few of the things, and I think it's incumbent on all the large businesses to try to find ways that we can help support and grow small businesses because we need them to be successful.
So how do people become a part of these programs? How do they get to you?
So on the Energy Small Business Grant Program, you can go to bge.com and you'll see a link to it. The 2C2I initiative, there's an application process, which we also have on our website. So really, the short answer is go to our website and you can see it all. These are programs that are funded by BGE but administered by other individuals that have more experience in evaluating applications. And I'll be honest, for me, there are so many great small businesses, I don't want to say no to anybody. So it's a lot easier to have someone else manage it.
Okay. And, go ahead.
Yeah, and I would add to all the things that Kareem said, I think maybe the most important one that you didn't say is being a customer. For so many entrepreneurial businesses, the most important thing a big company can do is be a first customer or be willing to be a pilot partner when they're testing their innovation. Revenue in the door is the other form of capital. And I think that there are cities across the country that have a real culture of looking first to the companies in their own city or their own state when they're considering a new technology or they're looking to fill a need. And that is not something that we have really, Hopkins actually has a great program and as an institution has done a very good job with its Be Local program. I would say beyond Hopkins, it's very hit or miss. whether our local companies really think first, like, is there a local company in this sort of, this effort to really think about how we leverage more fully the beneficial aspects of growing our own ecosystem? You know, to think about, is there a company that we should be considering? If you're going to put dispensers in your restroom, are you talking to Femly? If you're going to be, you know, innovating around an HR technology, are you talking to one of our HR tech firms? I mean, I think that there's a lot of that, like, think first, give permission, as a CEO, give permission to the folks that are the frontline decision makers, that you approve of and encourage them to consider a local company when they're evaluating, you know, a purchase.
And Jamie, if I could add, you know, I think you're entirely right, and thank you for saying that. You know, one of the things that we look at BGE is, and a lot of companies, are minority diverse business spend. But we took it another step recently and said, what's our local diverse spend? Because it's important to support the local businesses. And even if they're not headquartered here, how do you get them to come and create a presence in the Central Maryland area so they have a real presence that creates jobs, that creates opportunity, that energizes others to do something creative as well. So I think that's exactly right. And in terms of what CEOs and companies can and should be doing is track that number. When you track that number, you set goals for yourself, people know you're serious. They know that this is an important piece of the strategy, and you'll achieve those numbers.
Can I just jump on this? Because I think because you guys are at both ends of the spectrum, both literally and figuratively today here. But I think it's important, the mentorship part of it too. Sure. And to have those experienced business leaders, those that have gone through many rounds of funding in the past, they are serial entrepreneurs, they know what they're doing, or they're based in a large corporation that we're so blessed to have here in the state of Maryland. When you are coming up, and let's say you're a scientist and you're in Christy's organization, you don't necessarily know how to be a CEO and discover the cure for cancer at the same time, right? It's a learned behavior. And at the Maryland Tech Council, we have free mentoring service, and we have about 200 mentors that are out there all the time, just not solving problems, but teaching leaders how to be leaders and how to be a business leader. And I think you went to the brain drain at first. Mm-hmm. We don't want to continue to drain because we want that experience. We want all of that good power that we've been able to create here to stay so that the next generation can capitalize on it as well.
Definitely. And then Kelly and Christy, you both mentioned AI. What role do you see that playing in business in the state?
It's not going away.
Industries? Yeah.
It's not going away. Whether we want it to or not, it's not going away. I think harnessing it, you know, I think there's so much research that's happening out there. Being able to utilize AI in a laboratory type of way where you can get through some of the research more rapidly, what that looks like in the future, I think is we don't know what we don't know at this point in time, how big it's going to get. But it's everywhere, and it's going to continue to be an impact on what we're doing, both digitally and throughout all of the emerging technology industries that are coming ahead.
Yeah, I think we can almost think of it like the internet in 1995. Like, that's where we're sitting right now. And you might have had a sense of where that could go and what it could mean, but I don't think that anyone would have been able to predict in 2023 what, you know, the launch of Netscape in 95 would have meant. And so it does feel like that at Johns Hopkins, for example, and we're not alone in this. There are other universities making bets, but we're making a very large bet in a data science and translation institute. And we're recruiting 120 faculty that have expertise in AI. Wow. To really double down. And so I can foresee a future, a decade from now, 2 decades from now, where Baltimore is a leader in this, whether it's policy around AI, whether it's an application to drug development in AI, whether it's the future of transportation, energy, et cetera. I think it's, as the internet, it's going to be widely applicable, and we want to be at the leading edge of that. And what I hope from where I sit is that it will mean dozens and dozens and dozens of scalable technology companies doing good, and really harnessing AI for good.
And is there more that you all see we could be doing with biotech?
Well, as far as the AI with biotech?
Just in general. I mean,
in
I know
general,
it's pretty
biotech?
established, yes.
Well, I mean, these ladies are living it every single day. I happen to actually live with a person that is doing biotech right now. My husband is doing some of that entrepreneurial stuff again. But I think there's so many different ways in which people are looking at, because of the different technologies that are around. So biotech as it relates to agriculture, biotech as it relates to energy, sustainability, fuel efficiency. I think that they're using that as a way to kind of catapult them into different types of industries of the future, I would say.
And I would just add, and Jamie said it, I'll say it in a different way than she said it, but I completely agree. There is a critical mass already here in Baltimore in biotech. In the last decade, companies coming just out of Johns Hopkins have raised over $4 billion. And about half of that, close to half of that, chose to stay local. They didn't choose to go to other ecosystems. Whereas before we really doubled down and make this bet, very few companies chose to stay here. There simply wasn't an ecosystem. So I would just say on the topic of biotech, we've come a long way. We have a long way to go, but there are very strong signs of life in terms of the number of jobs being created, the number of entrepreneurs choosing to stay and build here.
And the three of you at least touched about, getting the story of Maryland out there. Why do you think that story is not out there like we would like it now?
It
is a great place to live. Show a little bias as a journalist.
There's a lot of reasons. I mean, I think that it has been it's been challenging. Speaking from a Baltimore perspective, it's been challenging amidst the sort of the default stance of the national media that always covers only a few storylines about Baltimore, most of which are not flattering to the city, to have breakout stories about what's happening in innovation and entrepreneurship, and even our amazing universities and institutions to sort of break through in the national media. And I think that the reality is it doesn't happen because one story happens and so you can say, look at us, right, let's tell this story. I think you need that continued, constant repetition of good news and strategic storytelling that happens. But we also need some distinct lanes of identity that people can begin to see us for. And I think some of that certainly, our biotech infrastructure in Baltimore is among the best in the country or the world. I think we also, part of the reason when we launched UpSurge that we thought about the frame for our work around this new concept of equitech is because we know tech is vital to growing cities in the 21st century, but we also wanted a place where we thought we could lead. And we think that trying to be the first truly inclusive tech economy in the world is a distinct lane of promise for Baltimore. And that when we can figure out, repeatable strategies that we can begin to put out into the world and then have the wins to back up those ideas, that's part of how you begin to break through.
Okay. Before you answer, I just want to say we're going to start taking questions after she answers. So if people want to line up for questions, that would be great.
And I'll be really fast.
Sure.
We're sitting in Baltimore, which is certainly a great biotech hub in the state of Maryland. But I will say that Maryland, in and of itself, in addition, with Baltimore being a big part of that, it has been challenging and it has been difficult in the past to get everyone in all of the littler ecosystems around the state to sing from the same hymnal.
Yeah.
And I congratulate the newest effort for the big tech grant that came out, because I think for the first time we have seen that communities within our ecosystem have come together to sing from the same hymnal and say, hey, listen, this is who we are, let's do this, and let's try to get some of that federal spending that's going to come here. But the challenge is to market Maryland, because Maryland has several different hubs that we can't ignore because each of them feed into the other, whether it's energy that's on the Eastern Shore with ag tech, or it's Montgomery County, or it's Western Maryland and robotics, or quantum at College Park. It all has to fit together and be marketed together.
Okay. Thank you. Now, you have a question for us?
Oh, sure. Hi, everyone. Tony Lawson, founder and executive director of the B Org. So as a position of, from a woman with my background being in STEM and tech, Christy, I'm a product of Johns Hopkins University Tech Venture Social Innovation alum. Jamie, I know UpSurge is working hard to create pipelines for students and young people in tech. What is your commitment? We talked today a lot about big ideas, right? What is your commitment, for anyone who wants to answer, to the young people and the rising talent that we have, as well as the organizations that are focusing on tech and building up that tech, the next tech professionals in Baltimore, in order to really make this an equitech city and to really put Baltimore on the map, not only just for its diversity, not only for its burgeoning tech community, but as far as capitalizing on the talent and the organizations that are supporting the burgeoning talent of young people in this tech industry.
Maybe I'll start. Maybe you weren't asking me, but I'm going to start anyways. But one of the things that, I'm surrounded by engineers all day long, so I love data. And so one of the things that data clearly shows is to get someone excited about STEM, if you can catch him or her between the 4th and 6th grade, you can really make a difference and have them pursue a life in the STEM fields. So at BGE, we do a number of different programming. We start at the middle school level. We have summer programming that we do, free programming, summer camps basically, to get the kids excited about STEM. We're now looking at extending that year round to the students so we can keep them engaged throughout the time period. In the high school levels, we have our Women in STEM program, where we have women come in and not only have STEM assignments and curriculum, but they also hear from successful women in the STEM fields. Because I think one of the most important things that we have to have people understand is that people with backgrounds that look like them are successful in the STEM fields, whether that's engineering, math, technology, science, it doesn't matter. There are successful stories. They need to hear from these people and see themselves in those roles. And then obviously we have internship programs and other programs we do throughout the year. But the key is we have to take it to them, because we have to get them excited, because you're right. If we're going to be successful in the future, we need these young people to get excited, get in the field, and be part of our future.
Go to marylandtechcouncil.com, look up the Venture Mentoring Service. It's free, and would love to be able to help any of the young companies that are out there that are looking for support.
Okay, so we're running a little short on time, apologize. So we're gonna take one more question. Yes.
The CHIPS Act. It's one of the biggest achievements of the Biden administration. $54 billion to encourage the manufacture of semiconductors in the United States. There are about 15 plants so far throughout the United States: California, Idaho, New York, North Carolina. Why don't we have a CHIPS Act project in Maryland?
Good question. I don't think they're the experts on that, but thank you, sir, for your question. So thank you all for participating in the panel. I think it was a great conversation that people got a lot of it.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay.